brace yourselves, cause we're diving into the latest, most explosive chapter in the royal drama that has the world on edge. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, has thrown down the gauntlet with a demand so bold, so shocking, it could rewrite the rules of royalty forever. Yes, you heard it right. $50 million. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Meghan's latest maneuver isn't about the money. It's about something much more dangerous: power, control, and the future of Archie and Lilibet. Let's rewind to late November 2025. It all started when Meghan reached out to Prince Harry with an ultimatum that would change everything. No more pleasantries, no more softening the blow, just a cold, calculated demand, a settlement offer. But not just any settlement. This was a strategic blow designed to rock the monarchy to its core. $20 million in assets, $15 million for full custodial authority over the kids, and another $15 million for reputational loss. The perfect storm of money and leverage. Meghan's request didn't stop there. No, she was looking to control the narrative, to hold the royal family's secrets hostage. She wanted her privacy maintained in exchange for silence, demanding that her stays at royal estates never reach public record. She was ready to unleash a media firestorm if things went south, and there were whispers that Hollywood heavyweights like Oprah and Tyler Perry were already on board, ready to fuel the flames. Meghan had set the stage for an all-out media war. But wait, it gets worse. Meghan didn't just want money. She made it clear to Harry that this wasn't a negotiation, it was a battle for their children's future. Custody of Archie and Lilibet was the prize, and Meghan wasn't about to back down. The stakes were too high. It wasn't just about her future. It was about securing her children's place in a world that had already shown them too many harsh realities. Then came the bombshell that left Harry shattered. Meghan told him in no uncertain terms that she could destroy him, not just ruin his career, but tear apart the very institution he was born into, the monarchy itself. She knew the weapon. She was wielding his own personal guilt, his love for his children, and his emotional exhaustion. Meghan had Harry cornered, trapped in a nightmare of his own making. Harry, who once defied the royal family in the name of love and independence, now found himself questioning everything. He'd been pulled into a psychological whirlwind that made him question his loyalty. Was he still the same man who walked away from the throne, or had he become a pawn in Meghan's game? Friends describe him as a man torn between two worlds, between his love for Meghan and his loyalty to the crown. He'd been stripped of his royal protection and left vulnerable in California, where silence was the only thing keeping him safe. But that silence, as it turns out, was exactly what Meghan needed to hold him captive. And just when you thought things couldn't get more intense, January 1st, 2026, marked a turning point. King Charles III, in an unprecedented move, authorized legal action against his daughter-in-law. The filing, which hit the High Court in London, wasn't about infidelity or scandal. No, this time it was about something far darker: coercion. The palace wasn't going to let Meghan's financial demands slide any longer. Her request had crossed the line, and now it's time to fight back. But don't be fooled, this wasn't just about money. This was a battle for control. The royal family couldn't let Meghan's threats become the new normal. If they capitulated now, it would set a precedent for every future royal outcast to demand their pound of flesh. The crown was being held hostage, and they were running out of time to make a stand. But what was Harry doing in all of this? He wasn't the rebellious son who had once vowed to live life on his own terms. No, now he was retreating. He was avoiding public appearances, slipping in and out of the UK without anyone noticing. Inside the palace, his movements were described as non-operational, like someone on the run. Friends of Harry say he was searching for answers, for peace. But peace wasn't something he could find. Not with Meghan pulling the strings. The truth, it seemed, was slipping through Harry's fingers. He was a man divided, torn between two families, two identities, and two futures. He didn't want to fight, but he didn't want to lose his children either. The pressure was too much. And that's when Meghan made it clear Harry was trapped. She wasn't asking for a divorce. She wasn't asking for a reconciliation. She was asking for power. Full control over the narrative, over their lives. And most importantly, over their children's futures. If Harry didn't comply, if he didn't stand by her, then everything was at risk: his career, his family, and even his relationship with his children. The palace had no choice but to respond. The tension in the air was palpable, and the entire royal family was divided. Prince William, Princess Catherine, and even Princess Anne rallied behind King Charles. This wasn't just about Meghan's demands, it was about the very fabric of the monarchy itself. They couldn't afford to bend to her pressure. But then there was Harry, stuck in the middle. His silence spoke volumes. The palace had hoped he would mediate, that he could somehow bring Meghan to the table for a peaceful resolution. Instead, Harry remained paralyzed. His mind was in turmoil, and he couldn't make a decision. The clock was ticking, and every moment of indecision made things worse. In the end, it came down to one thing: power. And who would hold it? Would Meghan's emotional leverage be enough to topple the monarchy? Or would the palace stand its ground, no matter the cost? The battle had only just begun. The fate of the monarchy hung in the balance, and Harry, now completely isolated, was at the center of it all, as the royal family braced for the fallout from Meghan's $50 million demand. The media storm she had unleashed took on a life of its own. The world was watching, and Meghan knew how to use it to her advantage. Behind closed doors, King Charles and his most loyal allies were preparing for a legal showdown that could make or break their legacy. They had no intention of giving in to Meghan's financial blackmail. But there was a problem: the public. The world outside of the palace walls was buzzing with support for Meghan. She was a woman scorned, a mother fighting for her children, a symbol of resistance to the monarchy's ancient, rigid traditions. The stakes were higher than ever. Meghan was no longer fighting just for money or custody. She was fighting for control over the narrative. And the narrative was something the monarchy had long prided itself on controlling. As King Charles steeled himself for the legal battle, Meghan was already ahead of the game, manipulating the media, crafting a story that painted her as a victim of a royal family too cold, too calculating to care about her or her children's well-being. The strategy was clear. Meghan wasn't just pushing for a financial settlement. She was laying the groundwork for a full-scale media blitz that would have devastating consequences for the royal family's reputation. Oprah was already in her corner, along with other Hollywood powerhouses like Tyler Perry, all too willing to help Meghan reframe the royal family as a manipulative, emotionally abusive institution. The playing field was now global, and Meghan's allies were ready to amplify her every word, every gesture, every tear. But Meghan wasn't just playing for sympathy. No, she was a master at turning the tables, at wielding emotional leverage with deadly precision. And Harry, well, he was the perfect pawn in this game. As the pressure mounted, Harry's mental state became a concern for everyone involved. Once the confident, rebellious royal who had turned his back on tradition, he was now a shadow of his former self. The weight of the world seemed to rest on his shoulders, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find a way out. His silence spoke volumes. It wasn't just about staying neutral anymore, it was about survival. But at what cost? Harry's mental exhaustion was becoming all too visible. His friends described him as a man who seemed to have lost all sense of purpose, a man who no longer knew where he belonged. Insiders confirmed that Harry was having private meetings with his father, King Charles, trying desperately to make sense of his crumbling world. But each conversation seemed to only deepen his paralysis. He was caught between two conflicting loyalties: the love he had for Meghan and the duty he had to the crown. And then came the bombshell that would tip the scale. The palace knew that time was running out. Meghan had already made her move, but now it was time for the royals to respond. In a historic, never-before-seen move, King Charles authorized the High Court to take action. The legal filing accused Meghan and her team of using threats and coercion to secure their demands. This wasn't just a lawsuit, it was a declaration of war. As the legal battle raged, Meghan's response was swift and fierce. She wasn't going to let the palace dictate the term. No, she was going to fight this battle in the court of public opinion, where she had already built a strong following. Meghan's PR machine kicked into overdrive, releasing carefully timed statements, leaks, and exclusive interviews designed to undermine the monarchy's credibility. But here's where the story took a dramatic twist. Meghan's camp knew she didn't have the hard evidence to win in a courtroom. There were no damning documents, no smoking guns to support her claims. Instead, she was betting on something far more dangerous: the power of perception. She didn't need to win in court, she needed to win in the hearts and minds of the public. And the public, well, they were eating it up. Media. Outlets around the world were devoting entire segments to the royal drama, questioning the monarchy's treatment of Meghan and her children. Hashtags like #ProtectMeghan and #MonarchyOnTrial exploded across social media, sparking debates about racism, institutional abuse, and the monarchy's outdated power structure. Meghan was framing herself as the modern-day princess who had been silenced by the monarchy's oppressive traditions. The damage was done. Meghan had expertly manipulated the narrative, creating a cultural battlefield where the monarchy had no choice but to defend itself. The world was watching as the royal family crumbled, their carefully crafted image of dignity and silence shattered by the relentless force of Meghan's media blitz. The more the palace tried to remain silent, the louder Meghan's voice became. But it wasn't just Meghan's media presence that was shaking the palace. Harry's continued silence was being used against him. Each day that passed without a clear statement from him only strengthened Meghan's position. She wasn't just fighting for custody or a settlement anymore. She was fighting for control of the royal narrative, and she was winning. Insiders close to the palace began to fear that Harry might ultimately side with Meghan. His indecision, his reluctance to take a firm stand, was becoming a liability. His emotional state was deteriorating by the day. A man once confident in his choices was now paralyzed by fear of losing his children, fear of alienating the one person who had stood by him through everything. As January 1st, 2026 approached, the royal family's position had become even more uncertain. King Charles's decision to pursue legal action against Meghan was met with mixed reactions. While some, like Prince William and Princess Catherine, stood firmly behind the king, others within the palace questioned whether this confrontation would only escalate the crisis. The palace was stuck in a game of high-stakes chess. They couldn't back down. Not now. But with each passing day, the odds were shifting. Would Meghan's media machine continue to gain momentum, pushing her closer to victory, or would the palace's legal team manage to turn the tide in their favor? One thing was certain: the world was watching, and the future of the monarchy depended on the next move. The crown was in danger of losing its grip on power, and in this fight for survival, every word, every gesture, every headline counted.